Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Good evening and welcome everybody back to another Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It is a very special interview this evening and I am joined by one of my trio's partners, Dave Robinson. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Hand. How you doing, mate?
I'm okay. How is the weather your side? Have you had any rain yet?
No, it's okay, mate. It's pretty good down here at the minute.
Brilliant. So obviously for our guest's sake, I'm near London. Dave is near the Midlands.
Up in the Midlands, near Birmingham.
Exactly. But our guest is actually in America, obviously, and played a part in mine and Dave's childhood growing up. Think of the Monday Night Wars, think of WWE versus WCW, and you think of three most other important letters in the business, which was N, W, O, and this man played a part of it. He's buff, he's tough, and the girls still can't get enough. Buff, Bagwell, good afternoon to you.
How's it going, guys? What's going on?
Very good, man. Good to see you.
The hat is amazing.
Is that a new one, Buff? Is that a new one?
There's two of us.
I used to love that on your intro.
That was
I love it. That was my mom, my wonderful, crazy ass mama.
I remember your mom.
Oh man,
what a lady.
She was a hoot, bro. I mean, a woman in that run that could be an elderly woman that could fit into the world of pro wrestling. I'm not just saying it because she's my mom. I don't know of a woman that could have done it.
Yeah.
And I get asked a lot, was that really your mom? I'm like, I know it's hard to believe, but yes. I mean, my mother ran a lumber business for 17 years in the 70s and 80s. There wasn't a Home Depot, bro. There was Southeastern Building Supply in Marietta, Georgia. And it was a multi-million-dollar business that started with my father, one other guy, and my mother. They would take a lumber order, close the store, load the lumber, deliver it, come back and reopen the store. Wow. To a multi-million-dollar business for 17 years. And so that woman, though, that tough woman that ran a lumber business and with truck drivers, there wasn't any women truck drivers back then. No. And there wasn't a woman that could have ran a 300-man lumber yard. But she did, and she could, and ran it successfully. So that same woman getting into the world of pro wrestling was just like, she fit right in.
Yeah, it was nothing to her. It was easy.
It did indeed. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So the first part, as we mentioned before, we announced it was going to be a two-part. The first part is about the three letters behind me and on my shirt. But we start a little bit before that. So there was a story behind the NWO, and it all started on a Nitro. And it all started with a gentleman, God rest his soul, by the name of Scott Hall. Now, picture the scene. For those of you younger fans, you may not know. So basically, Scott Hall was signed by WWE. He's Razor Ramon. Yeah, he had a great run. I'd seen some of his interviews that he's done where he said, that the pay it was starting to plateau. He wasn't earning as much as what he could have done. But anyway, long story short, they had a call with WCW. And on a 27th edition of Nitro, May 27th, there's a match going on in the ring. Mike, Steve Dolan, I think Colonel Robert Parker was on the outside of the ring, if I remember rightly. And there's this commotion. And you've got to, so as you're watching wrestling nowadays, you're watching it and you can see the crowd behind you. Coming down the stairs was Scott Hall on WCW Nitro television. Now, for me and Dave in England, this is the time where the internet isn't rife. You can't Google it. Ask Jeeves was probably something you could probably do back then, but you couldn't, the beauty of this was that you couldn't do any of that. He walks in and he says, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. And then he says, finishes up with, you wanted a war, you got the war. Buff, what is going on backstage at this point? What do you guys know at this stage?
We know nothing. We're watching what y'all are seeing, and we're going, is that Scott Hall? And then it flooded. It went around pretty quick to the locker rooms that you were not allowed to say the word Razor Ramon. If the word Razor Ramon was said, it was a $10,000 fine.
Ooh.
So, and I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if it meant we had to pay but I can tell you, it was passed around like we would have to pay it. So you didn't hear the word Razor Ramon. You just didn't. So, and it did say, Scott Hall on there. And there was like about the same time we saw him, those memos came up. And, we were like, what's going on? What's this deal? What's going on? And then before we knew it, it was, Nash was there, and it kind of kept going. So we didn't really know a lot. We knew kind of what y'all were seeing at the time because, telling the wrestlers was like telling the fans. We were the worst ones to probably tell because, we were going to tell somebody else, and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on.
Yeah, it was for me, as I say, we over in the UK, we never got this live. So we had like the Friday night wars over here. So it was like Raw was on a Friday, and then we used to have like Johnny Bravo on the Cartoon Network would finish on a Friday, and it would go straight into Nitro, Monday Nitro on a Friday. So we had the Friday wars here in the UK. But carrying on the story, Scott Hall then basically the following week says there's a surprise coming, and it's a big surprise. And lo and behold, can't get much bigger, right? Lo and behold, the week later, the commentary box, I think it was Bobby Heenan, Bischoff. Who was the third guy?
Zbyszko, was it?
Zbyszko. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Zbyszko. And Scott Hall comes out and he's having this face-off with Bischoff, and behind him just approaches this absolute giant, which is Kevin Nash. And again, for us, with knowing, the internet's not right, I'm WWE fan, so I've always been WWE. Dave has been more WCW than me. And like, I was sitting there going, hang on a minute, why is now Nash, or Diesel, as I knew him, and Razor on this show saying there's a war? People over here legitimately thought that the WWE were bringing guys over to WCW. Yeah, it was literally, that's what we was thinking. Nash shows up buff. Now what the hell's going on?
Now we're, now it's a big deal. Now we're seeing what's going on. But you got to realize at the time, me and Riggs are the American males.
Yeah.
We're WCW. We know we're second best. We're not first. We know the WWF is winning, of course, but as far as we're concerned, we're doing our job, and we're doing good ratings. We got a great new show called Monday Night Nitro we're doing, and the ratings are high and all that. Me and Scotty Riggs are world tag team champions.
Yep.
So it's a big deal. And something a lot of people don't know is me and Scotty Riggs technically were the first wrestling match ever on the very first Nitro.
Yes, you was.
It wasn't televised.
Yeah, I remember.
The very first match was Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger.
Right.
But me and Riggs wrestled Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater in the dark match.
Brilliant. I did hear that somewhere.
That's a good bit of trivia right there.
That is a great.
It really is. But it was such a high for me and Scotty Riggs, because that when you're the dark match back then, it wasn't like an NXT dark or AEW dark where there's 75,000 dark matches. There was this many dark matches.
Yeah.
One. And that dark match told you that you were next. Yeah. And so we knew that we were next, brother. We were the shit. We were doing good because we were next. So that dark match with Bunkhouse Buck, and it took me years to realize we were the first match, because they don't really count and don't matter. But for the team and for the atmosphere, it did matter, because the people there don't even really know which was the first match. If you bought a ticket to Monday Night Nitro at the Mall of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you would think that American Males was the very first match that night. Because it wasn't on TV, but it was the first match they saw. So that was a really big deal. But when Nash came in, Nash had his run at WCW as several different people, and never got over. And like Vince is so great doing, people would leave the WCW, and Vince loved making WCW talent guys big. Like, Stunning Steve left us and turns into Stone Cold. Cactus Jack leaves us and becomes, Mankind and a thousand other things. Dude Love and millions of dollars later, all of that. And then same thing with I don't know if people know this, but Mean Mark Palace.
Yeah, The Undertaker. I was about to say it. Mean Mark.
He was with us first. So Vince loved taking Turner. He was good at it. Let's be honest. He was great at it. He was good at taking WCW talent, Ted Turner talent, and showing us what we blew. But like Stunning Steve, for example, what a great talent, great guy, all that. But he was always hurt with us. He really was. And him and Eric didn't get along. And I don't know what the heat was, but I know they didn't get along. But everybody loved Steve, of course. He was super cool, super great, one of the best workers in their locker room. But he was always hurt with us. He broke I think he did something to his knee, and then he had something wrong with his arm. But he was hurt a lot. And I think if you did your research, he was injured when he got fired even. I think it was an injury thing because he wasn't coming back from it or something. But him and Eric didn't like each other for whatever reason. But again, there goes Vince McMahon making Stone Cold. And then Kevin Nash, same thing. Yeah. Oz. He was actually his first character ever, I'm not sure if you know, was Master Blaster.
Yeah, Master Blaster. Yeah, I said he done it on the podcast. He said it about his podcast. He does. Click this. He was talking about it on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, and that's when me and him were friends. We both were Atlanta boys. He's from Michigan, but he was the #1 bouncer in Atlanta, and I was kind of like one of the #1 party boys. But there's 10 years difference between me and Kevin. But so back then, I was 19 years old getting in clubs, and he was bouncing at the cool clubs. So we were real good friends and cool. He's real cool. And all of a sudden, here's this local town hero kid and Kevin Nash, 2 different areas, both trying to get into pro wrestling. So we actually had something in common, Yeah. And so, but we wasn't friends like calling each other and all that, but we would see each other at gyms and at the clubs and stuff. And we'd hang out and have a good time together. But Kevin was always like a brother to me. He was really a great guy. And but it was just really cool when Kevin showed up and Scott together. We knew that this was going to be something really big, and instantly there was a big stir with the crowd.
Yeah, well, the crowd were going crazy at the time, and I think there was still that element of confusion there with the crowd because nobody really knew. Because like I keep banging on about the internet now, this is what the beauty of wrestling was back then, because you didn't have this kind of the opportunities that you do now. There's you can literally go that you can go on the tweets and that you can get it all. Not during this, you couldn't. It wasn't readily available, and that was what made the beauty of wrestling in the era that myself and David, and obviously that you were a part of growing up, so good, because you didn't expect it. And then we follow on. The next pay-per-view, they powerbomb Bischoff through the table. I remember that vividly. Off the stage he goes. He gets launched off through the table, and then they start hinting at a third man. Now this is to this day, I don't think there's been a bigger heel turn in wrestling, even now. We're in 2023. This happened in 96. The rumors were Sting, that was meant to have been the third man. That was the rumors that were going out anyway at the time. It was Sting. The match is in the ring. You've got Savage in there, Paul Nash. And all of a sudden, Hogan, the biggest baby face in wrestling for so long, walks to that aisle. I think Bobby Heenan, bless him, he said the best line ever. Well, whose side is he on? Everyone's like, what are you talking about? Whose side is he on? It's Hulk Hogan. Rips the shirt off. Savage is laying down. Bang. Drops the leg on Savage. And I think there was a stunned silence. I mean, the crowd were going crazy. And then the rubbish get thrown in. So you fans can stick it, brother. And it was... At that point, Buff, was that then touch paper lit and everyone's like, oh my God, this is the biggest heel turn that's ever happened in wrestling to this day?
Well, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, when you saw it as a fan, we saw it as fans as well. I mean, we're watching Hulk Hogan take your vitamins and say your blessings, all the Hulkamaniacs. We're seeing all this just go down the tubes, the red and yellow, even Sting being as popular as he was and being the WCW cornerstone, there was not a color that Sting was known by. To make this even bigger, it was known that Hogan's colors was the red and yellow.
Yeah.
The Hulkamaniacs, the red and yellow, and take your bottom. There was a color. And then for there to be a color called the black and white. It was that black and white, red and yellow thing that made it even more cool. But this may not be totally true, but I know there's some weight to this. Sting, like you said before, there's only two guys that could have done this. Sting and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
The only two complete baby faces that was going to make a dent in this turn would be Sting or Hulk Hogan. And it's my understanding they went to Sting first and proposed the idea to him, and he said, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not sure if he said he didn't think it would work or whatever, but it just wasn't what he wanted to do. And I was surprised Hogan did, but Hogan went in and made the turn, man. It made, like I said, it's no doubt, it will go down as no doubt. It'll go down as one of the best things in history of wrestling. And I bet I said this line 15 or 20 years ago, and I'll be saying it for the rest of my life. I really don't want to say, you know what? I was part of the biggest thing in wrestling. I always like to be able to say I was part of one of the biggest things in wrestling.
Yeah.
But I will go to bed and I will die saying I was part of the biggest thing in pro wrestling. Yeah. And that is the NWO.
You absolutely was. Dave, go ahead. I think you're trying to get a word in. Sorry.
No, I absolutely agree with you both. You were absolutely involved with the best thing in the history of wrestling, and that's why it still feels like it's current to this day. Adam's got his NWO top on. You see them scattered across the crowd at every wrestling event, whether it's WWE shows or it's AEW shows or it's independent shows. So the NWO was the biggest thing, and it will continue to be, NWO for life.
Yeah.
When you were kind of seeing this all unfold, Buff, did you have any ideas as to what was going to come next? Whether that would be in WCW, whether that would be the rivalry with the WWF. What were your thoughts once this NWO faction was established?
Well, when it first happened, of course, we're all thinking, look, we gotta win. We've got to be, now it's time for the WCW to be number one. No doubt about it. We got to be number one. It's time for a change. We're hearing all the rumors. We're seeing all the ratings. We are the better show. We do have the better talent. We are the best program on television. We no doubt about it. We are, but still on a golf course, playing around a golf, the guys don't know the letters WCW. They know the letters WWF. And they just didn't know them. That your local normal people, your average American, your average person did not know WCW. And it really, we didn't like it. We hated that. So it was time to make everybody know what WCW was. And so we set out on a venture. And I remember when I get asked this a lot, I always forget about really what I was doing at the time, because I didn't have much time to ponder on, man, I'd like to be in the NWO, because I don't have those memories. The only memory I've got is Kevin Nash walking into the dressing room and asking me if I want to be in the NWO, and me, of course, accepting. But I was like, are you kidding me? Absolutely, I do. But I do remember that. But it must have, I think I was the 6th or 7th person. But, like I said, it wasn't like, that's 4 and that's 5. They didn't make that big a deal about 4, 5, and 6. The 3 was a big deal, but 4, 5, 6 we know was roughly X-Pac, roughly Virgil, roughly Giant, and then right there roughly is me. So, and also Ted's in there too. So it's just am I still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So roughly, it just it kept going. And it was Salisbury, Maryland, is what I remember. And me and Riggs were in the dressing room, and Kevin walked in and said, "Hey, I want you to join the NWO." And I'm like, "Of course." And I remember seeing Scotty's face and being like, "Oh my God, this is this is the end. This is it for the American males. But again, nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw the for life and we didn't see the how we were going to go 83 consecutive weeks. I mean, 83 consecutive weeks, bro. We were getting off private jets with Eric and giving high fives to Eric, our boss, because we beat the the WWF again, and we're really behind his back going, this ain't good. This ain't good. You know, we're beating Vince so bad that it wasn't good. We knew there needed to be two companies for the wrestlers, for the talent, for the boys. It wasn't good for us to beat the Vince and beat WWF. It wasn't good. At first, it was fun that we were going to beat the WWF. And then it was fun that we were beating them. And then we realized, oh my God, we're beating them too bad. This isn't good. You know, and so I remember I remember those plane trips with Eric giving us high fives that we beat him again. And really we're going, no, this is not good. And then I'll never forget that Vince had a fake Razor and a fake Diesel.
Yeah.
And that's when it was really going around the locker room. You couldn't say Diesel and you couldn't say Razor Ramon. And the $10,000 thing was going around because it was hot and heavy lawsuits were going on and talent was going on. And, Lex came to us and that was dirty. And Rick Rude, drilled him in the back and came to us as well. So it was a war. It was a Monday night war, man, is what it was. And we're watching their show on TV in our locker rooms, and they're watching our show on their TV in their locker room. It was like having a football game in different cities. It was a competition. At 8:59, brother, we were 8 to 10, and they were 9 to 11 at the start. At 8:59, if you wasn't where you were supposed to be, you were fired. I mean, at 8:59, we got Sting coming down repelling. We got the NWO coming out. They got The Rock on the microphone. They got Stone Cold snatching beers together. I mean, it was happening. The top thing that's happening was happening at 9 p.m., brother. And you better be where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, because there was when the fake Diesel and the fake Razor come out, I think even there was a bit of thingy inside WCW that thinking that they're going back. That was yeah. That it was the roof. That was because
but when we actually heard and saw that it was a fake one, we finally realized that we were really winning too much. That wasn't good. We were like, oh my God, we're actually beating them too bad. That's not good. So it ain't like we backed off. We didn't know what to do though. We just kept doing what we're supposed to do, but we just knew it wasn't a great thing that we were winning so heavily.
Well, were you kind of aware at the time that the impact you were having wasn't just in the States, but it was all across the world?
Absolutely not even close. I told a story yesterday about this. I had an NWO tank top on right at the very beginning. I mean, probably within 2 weeks of me joining the NWO, I had an NWO tank top on, and I went to Six Flags Over Georgia in Atlanta, Georgia. And I can tell you to this day, I've never been more bombarded to this day. So it was like, I didn't wear that shirt to be cool. I wore the NWO shirt because it was a really cool tank top. It fit me real good, but it wasn't like I was trying to be, hey, I'm Buff Bagwell. No, I know nobody's even going to notice me. It really blew my mind. I mean, like after I wore it that day, I never wore that tank top again. So it wasn't like I was trying to be cool. I just didn't know it was that popular. I had no idea. I mean, it blew people's mind when I was there. And it blew my mind. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is really popular. We had no idea that it was happening in our own hometown, our own state, much less it's happening overseas. No, we did not.
It was going crazy. And Wasn't long before Hogan got the title for the first time in the NWO. But I will say that what I want to say is we do a show called the Top 10 on here. That's a weekly show. We do top, and it was the top 10 favorite entrance musics the other week. And there was three, and you know the three I'm going to say: the Black and White, the Red and Black, and Jimi Hendrix for Hogan.
All of us, yeah.
It was the best.
Yeah, they were literally. I mean, I've still got it on I've got it on my iPod now. So if I go training or I go to, even if I'm traveling on a train to work, I've got that, and I've also got another good friend of ours, DDP's. I loved it.
Self high five.
Exactly that. It was amazing. So we'll go back to that. Hogan wins the title for the first time, and you did kind of mention this. You joined. Kevin asked you to join. You joined the NWO. But then you're joined by Sean Waltman, who makes the jump, and that's quite a big jump because we know over in WWE or F, it's kind of getting ready for DX, and DX are in there, but Waltman makes the jump. That is a big coup for WCW at that point, isn't it?
That was huge, because we use it and steal their talent. They usually stole ours.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, when Hogan came into us, WCW had big ideas and big plans, and it didn't work real well at first. I mean, Hogan came in as the red and yellow Hulk Hogan, Hulkamaniacs, take your vitamins, and Hulk Hogan was in WCW, but things just didn't really happen. We had Orlando, and we're doing Universal Studios tapings and stuff, but when the NWO came in, and then Hogan turned heel, it just changed everything to the point of Universal Studios said, "Look, we can't have you here no more." I mean, the fans are throwing trash into the ring, and the kids were around, and Universal Studios and MGM, all that stuff. It was too much for that fan base, and so we had to find arenas that we could start doing it in. And thank God at the time we were popular enough to find the arenas, so we did, and it took off.
Speaking of taking off, I will never forget when Nash died Rey Mysterio into the police.
As a matter of fact, that was so timeline wise. That night happened before I joined the NWO,
yes,
because me and Riggs were together because
yeah.
we're two people that got beat up.
Yeah, exactly.
They came in and when I saw them throw Rey Mysterio, I was on a gurney. And they beat me up and threw me on the gurney. And then I saw them throw Rey Mysterio like a arrow. Kevin Nash threw him. It was the most impressive thing I've ever seen in my life. If you watch that over, I mean, that ain't no dent that's happening, but afterwards, that's a dent in a semi-trailer that happened right then with Rey Mysterio's head. It was crazy.
I think the police were called that night. I'm sure Kevin Nash said that, or Scott Hall. One of them said, I'm sure the police were called that night when that was going on.
Oh, they were. And like I said, we got kicked. Nobody really knows this. They don't talk about it a lot. But Eric Bischoff could know. I'm pretty sure that ended our ties with Universal Studios because we just couldn't have that relationship no more.
Yeah, that was incredible. And then obviously, as you said, you joined not long after that. But there's one more really big turn that happens not long after. And it is the owner of WCW, or not the owner, but the general manager or the owner on television, the man in the commentary booth all the time. He's literally pro WCW.
Right.
Piper exposes him and it's Eric Bischoff, and he's actually coming over here in England in a couple of months. We're going to go and see one of shows he's doing over here. I can't wait to.
That's great.
Yeah, he's going to do. It's called Controversy Creates Cash. I think, funnily enough, one of the same of his book. Anyway, Eric Bischoff joins the NWO. What dynamic changes at this point, Buff, for the NWO with Bischoff being front and center now with Hogan?
It just brought so much. It's like it just brought validity to the NWO. It brought power because it's kind of like having a commissioner on a little bitty independent show. You got a little independent show that you're trying to get started in, and there's a match that you're trying to get made, and they make the match. It's not that powerful, but if somebody's entitled as the manager or the commissioner, and they lay that law down, it has some weight to it. Well, Eric Bischoff had weight to him, and when he was the GM of the whole deal, and then all of a sudden he's part of the NWO. And then I think one of his very first interviews was when I joined.
Yeah.
Eric came out and said, "Look, I'm giving you 30 days to join the WCW or you're fired." And again, all that's Eric's brains. It's all Eric and Kevin and Scott and Hogan working together with all the writers thinking of what you can do. But what a brilliant, brilliant idea. And then I always picked to be in that spot, which is a great spot, which is here I come walking out to join the NWO, and Scotty's trying to talk me out of it and all that, So just great TV.
It was.
Around the time that you joined Buff, obviously you had a friendship with Kevin, but they obviously knew your potential. You were in a great tag team with Scotty Riggs. We since saw what you could do and what you brought to the NWO and the great matches that you had. But what do you think it was at that time that Kevin and Scott and Hogan wanted you to be in their faction?
I don't know. I really don't. I've never asked them that, but that would be an incredibly great question because, at that time, if you really think about it, you're going to take care of your own first. So you got Kevin and Scott, and you got Hulk. Okay, now you got three guys that are super powerful there, and everybody's going to be saying, "Hey, brother, let me in. Hey, buddy, let me in." Well, I didn't do that. Not that I wouldn't have wanted to, but I didn't even know whose ass to kiss. I just was doing my job as the American male, as a WCW talent. And again, I don't ever remember hoping to be in the NWO because I think it happened that fast, or wishing I would have been. So I didn't have any plans like, man, if I get there, I'm going to do this and this. I'm going to have a top hat and I'm going to change my name to Buff when I get in there. I didn't have all those plans, and maybe that's the magic of it. The magic of it is you don't have those plans. You don't have that idea. They were throwing stuff against the wall every Monday, hoping it would stick. Yeah. And for whatever reason, every Monday it stuck. And that particular Monday was, let's bring Buff Bagwell. And again, a great question would have been when Kevin asked me to go, why? But I don't think I'd had the balls to do that. But no. but it would have been a fair, really good question. But I guess they saw my body and my look and my charisma, and I could be part of a team player, with that. And I really think I was a very good part of that because of my height and my look and my demeanor and the way I could be a bad guy, but be funny. And it was just, I felt like I was a good character for the NWO, and it made for a good team. You got your big, tall, bad, defensive tackles. And you also got your small, real fast cornerbacks on football teams. So it's all about a team. We had the Giant, we got Scott Norton as vicious. We got Bagwell as delicious. We got, you got a little of everybody, you got X-Pac, it was just a great team. But what I brought to the table, I do not know was what was in their eyes. I just think I made them very proud.
Absolutely. You I grew up in a house I got two younger brothers. All three of us were mad wrestling fans, Buff, and we used to recreate the entrances. So my younger brother had this little bowler hat. It was nothing like one of your top hats, but he'd imitate you, and he'd come out doing the Buff dance and doing the double boys and talking to his hat in the camera. And it was just like, you were always one of our favorites. So that's why I asked about, like Kevin obviously got that decision at 100% right.
Definitely.
I'm so glad he did, man. Like I said, I know I've thanked him several times, but that's what it came down to, is just thanking him, But I will tell you this, and nobody, I've never told this story. I will tell you when, through life and how things happen and all that. In Atlanta was when we were going to create the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
And there was no talk, no anything. All of a sudden at Nitro in Atlanta, I'm seeing these red and black NWO shirts walk around. And I'm like, what's going on with this? So all of a sudden I realized that nobody's talking to me about it, and I don't have a shirt. And that's a big deal. At other Nitros, there was a cart that went around, and to every single NWO person, they were able to get a couple of shirts out at every Nitro. I mean, just brand new NWO shirts. We'd rip them, tear them, make them look cool. And the next week, only the NWO guys, but the cart would go around, and we're able to get a tank top and a sleeveless and a regular T-shirt. 3 shirts came to each person. And out of that, it was a little embarrassing, to be honest with you, because the other boys couldn't grab one, and only the NWO guys could. So we get our shirts and all that. Well, this wasn't no cart going around. This was 3 or 4 guys had red shirts on, red and black. And I'm like, what's going on? Sting had been off a while.
Yeah.
And I got wind that there was going to be this new elite NWO group, but nobody spoke to me. So Sting got there, and I said, Sting, I've never, ever asked you for anything. You've always been great to me, and I've never had to ask you for something like that, but I need your help. I said, I'm thinking they're trying to leave me out of this NWO Wolfpack thing, and I don't like it. And before I could say anything else, he goes, I got you. And I went, whoa, wait. And he walked off. He was gone 2 minutes, and he came back and threw me 3 shirts, a tank top, a sleeveless. And I said, thanks so much, man. So to this day, I don't really know why, what, when. I just know it would have been ridiculous for me not to be in the Wolfpack, but I wasn't counted in at first, I don't think.
Wow. That is
yeah.
We're getting on to Wolfpack now, because actually you mentioned they created another brand. There was a red and black, black and white, red and black. I think the following week, one of the most interesting challenges he's ever made on WCW television, when Eric Bischoff challenges Vince McMahon to a match on WCW television. It was the pay-per-view that was coming up. If that had, I mean, obviously it would never have happened. If Vince had showed up at that pay-per-view, what would have gone on?
I don't know. The only thing I can compare that to was when they showed up in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes, DX.
We're backstage, and we're telling Eric, open the door. Open the door, let them in. What's the worst that could happen? Nothing. All that could happen is, a lot of bad stuff can happen, but still, it's going to be the huge ratings. They had a tank. Let the tank come in with Triple H and all the guys. They were all there. So we were like, open the door, Eric, open the door, So, Eric's on the phone with all the talent and the suits and the bosses and Turners, and he's trying to get the thing. We're all in the room there going, come on, man, come on. And it was a last minute decision, man, but it came down the trail of no, don't open the door. But with Eric and the Vince thing, I just don't know what would happen. It would have been crazy.
Do you think, Buff, if they would have got into the arena and the cameras were rolling, do you think the WCW guys and the DX guys would have just carried it on as if it was part of a storyline?
I really believe with the power of live television and the power of the amount of egos that's involved right there, it would have been the best fight in the history of time, because it would have been 100% shoot.
Yeah.
It would have been a real fight, because nobody wants to look stupid on live TV. And there was going to be some people that looked stupid right then. That was going to be the UFC of wrestling right there. That was going to be a real fight, because nobody wants to look stupid. And the DX thought they were better than NWO, and NWO thought we were better than the DX. So I'm telling you, there would have been some people getting hurt right there. And we had a tough team, and so did they. So, them boys are tough too, but I think we had some tougher guys with Norton and with Rude, and those Nash and Hall. Those guys are tough, And backstage you got Ming and Barbarian as well. We got guys like that. We got killers. We got killers on our team, man. So as a company, I think we would have killed them, but it would have been. People would have got hurt. It would have got hurt, and I think it would have made for unbelievable television.
I don't. Yeah, I think WWF had the cameras as well, didn't they? They were filming DX doing it.
Oh yeah,
with Nitro. Imagine that rating. If that had opened up the door, I wouldn't have. Wow,
it would have been great.
Well, yeah, it would have been amazing. We're going to start to finish off NWO. So we want to talk about you as well, Buff, and we want to get into you and your career and what you've done and other bits and pieces. What do you think? Was there a point where there was just too many? It was like 1 week you get beaten up, the next week you joined. Was the kind of downfall because they had too many in the end?
I do. No, I mean, I don't even believe it. It's a fact. It's a fact there was too many. The thing I told you about people asking to get in and, hey, and, friends and people paying people back with friendships and, like, no offense to him, but Horace Hogan, I mean, God bless him. He's Hulk's nephew and everything, but he's never really done anything in the wrestling business. He should never been in that. I mean, there's guys. It's not that people should have been or shouldn't have been. It just got to be too watered down, no matter what. And when it did, we knew that. So we do things like, in a group of guys, somebody would get missing. Like what happened to Ray? What happened to Trailer? Where's Big Bubba? Where's and so people would get missing, and that's what had to happen to kind of start whittling it back down. But it just got to be definitely watered down, and it hurt us.
Yeah, I think it did. I think on that note, let's end the NWO part. I loved it. NWO was
great. I could talk about it. I could talk about it all night.
Yeah, we could. Well, we're going to talk about you now, your career.
Okay.
Let's be honest. I'll be quite honest. People say the name gets thrown around quite a lot when they say the word Hall of Famer and Hall of Fame career. You've had one. Definitely.
Yes.
Without a doubt. You are, the fact that you're not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me, but that's not my decision. I don't make those. Those calls. Let's start pre-WCW. So you start your training off. I think you was Steve Lawler, right?
Yeah.
Strange Youth, 1990, Georgia, North Georgia Wrestling. Fabulous Fabian, wasn't it, back then?
That's it.
Yeah, and then Bill Eadie come up with another name for you, didn't he? That Lone Ranger style. Was it was either the Handsome Stranger or something like that?
Handsome Stranger.
Yeah, that was another one that you had before you joined WCW the first time. And when you joined, you were Marcus Alexander Bagwell. You were just your name. That was what you come in as. When you joined WCW the first time, this was 91, I believe. It was around 91. You was hired.
91.
Yeah, you had a couple of matches, dark matches and bits and pieces. Then you had your in-ring debut against Rick Rogers on World Championship Wrestling.
Yes.
Your debut. When you first went into WCW, then obviously we've already talked about NWO. What was it like in 91? Because I've listened to people like Cornette, that was like the back end of the late 80s and 90s. I've listened to his interviews, and he obviously left and went off to WWF. But what was it like back in the early 90s at WCW?
Well, like, for example, Kevin, me and Kevin wrestled, I say several. We wrestled 3 or 4 times, me and Kevin Nash did. Yeah. I wrestled Kevin as, he was always Vinny Vegas when I wrestled him.
Yeah.
But it was 3 or 4 times. Me and Scorpio wrestled him and the big tall guy, I can't remember his name. They were called Titan Towers or a big blonde haired guy, did some Miller Lite beer commercials, and he's also Michael in some of the Halloweens.
Yes, I know who you mean. I just can't think of his name, but I know.
But that guy and Kevin Nash were a tag team, and me and Scorpio beat them.
Yes.
Here's 2 7-foot giants. No reason me and Scorpio should win, but we did. And that's the kind of stuff they did with Kevin because they just didn't know what to do with him, I don't think. And then as Vinny Vegas, Marcus Alexander Bagwell beat Vinny Vegas on Saturday Night Television. And again, that shouldn't have happened. Kevin Nash was a 7-foot tall, incredibly great talent, but they just didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know what to do. So they had me beating, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was a huge win for me. I mean, I'm beating 7-foot Kevin Nash, and he was really upset about it. And I don't blame him. But, in that match, I just remember thinking, God, I can't believe I'm beating Kevin. But that's the kind of stuff they did with Kevin. And then he went off and became a big star. And I got really over with my work and with my tag team stuff. I'm back to the Hall of Fame kind of resume. To my knowledge, and maybe I've been saying this for years, so eventually this has got to be beaten. But whether it's 1 or 2 people that's got it, I'm one of the only, if not the only, 5-time World Tag Team Champion with 4 different guys.
Yeah.
So me and Patriot did it twice. So I got 5 titles with 4 guys, and I don't think that's ever happened. And the reason why that counts as a Hall of Famer resume is because Scott calls, for example, Shane Douglas and Too Cold Scorpio are nothing alike. Dale Wilkes and Too Cold Scorpio are nothing alike. Scorpio and Scotty Riggs are nothing alike. None of those 4 guys are anything alike. So that means I had to adapt. That means I had to change to make that tag team successful. That don't make me better than nobody, but it makes me being able to adapt to the situation, which is on your resume for a World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Fame. And that's all this is about. It's about you don't make the Hall of Fame in baseball because they like you. You don't make the Hall of Fame because you're a good guy. You make the Hall of Fame in baseball and football because of stats.
Yeah.
Well, because of stats, I should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And again, it goes a lot to looks and likes and all that, and I get it. But and they've got their own reasons for the Hall of Fame, and I think that's very fair. I just hope one day they can see past any rumors or any bad things that I've so-called done to not be such bad things that it speaks over my resume.
Yeah, I think. Go on, Dave. Go on.
Buff, did you hear I know we've done the NWO, but when the NWO were inducted into the Hall of Fame, it was the 3 guys predominantly. Was there any talk that you know of about bringing the rest of you guys in? I mean, not everybody, but the core, the guys like yourself, Scott Steiner, the guys that were there week in, week out to begin with.
I really think I kind of sized it up as I kind of put myself as an equal to Scott Steiner, whether he does or not. He may not, and the world may not. I mean, he's been a world champion much more than I have. His resume is much better than mine. But on the inklings of everything I saw, I kind of keep me and Scotty kind of even. And if he was ever involved in something, I feel like I should have been. And with that demeanor, if he would have got asked to be in the Hall of Fame and I didn't, I would have probably been really upset because I feel like me and Scotty were even in the NWO. And he didn't, obviously he didn't get asked for whatever reason, but I was never hurt. I never was told or asked about it. But to be honest with you, unless on paper it meant a lot more, but I'm not sure I would have wanted to do the NWO Hall of Fame thing. I mean, it just, I wasn't, that ain't what we did. So I'm glad it was only 3 of them. The NWO is just 3 guys. It really was Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. But didn't X-Pac get in as well?
Yeah. No, he was. Did he get in as well?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did. Oh,
yeah,
it was 4 of them, right?
Yeah. You're right.
See, like that to me, that's not really the truth. I mean, the truth is Scott, Kevin, and Hulk. That to me is the NWO Hall of Fame. I mean, they thought of the Too Sweet. They thought of the For Life. They thought of the NWO. All that is still going on with the LWO and all that. It's still everywhere. Those guys created it, not us. So when Peyton Manning goes to the Hall of Fame, it ain't the Indianapolis Colts that go into the Hall of Fame. It was Peyton Manning that went to the Hall of Fame. So even though the blockers helped him, it's still Peyton Manning that went. So I wouldn't have felt good getting a Hall of Fame ring going in as a group unless I was one of those 3 main guys. But I still would have loved to have been in it. Of course, I'd much rather go in as your own resume, your own self, your own 11-year career I had on television with 5 championships and Rookie of the Year reward, and just being a main talent for 11 years is a hell of a good resume.
Absolutely. It is. It certainly is. I look, things have happened before, and they've had people there that have gone into the Hall of Fame that hadn't spoken to him for like 50 years. So it's never impossible, right? Let's be honest. Your dance, Dave mentioned it. Your entrance, Brilliant. Yeah, everyone loves the entry. I loved it on the video games that they used to bring, the WCW NWO Revenge and all of
Used
that
to
stuff.
do it to get power up, and then you
Yeah,
could hit a blockbuster.
yeah. Where did that come about? And the hat. Where did all this start from?
Great knowledge, great talk. They're all different, so I'll tell you quickly on the dance. The dance was Baltimore, Maryland was a huge town for the WCW. They were a huge town. The Baltimore Arena and WCW, it was a huge town for us. So we were there doing a house show, and as market, they're a very what we call a heel town. They would, in other words, the main person they booed was Marcus Alexander Bagwell. I mean, that baby face would get booed to death at a Baltimore Arena house show. Well, fast forward, and I come out as Buff on a house show. And backstage, the boys are having more fun watching me grow into this than the fans are. They're blown away on what's happening. So they're really like involved in my character, and like they're just laughing and, man, this is it. You found it. It was really, you could really see that they really were happy that I found my character. And so I go through the curtain, and the whole locker room, I mean, your Jim Duggins, your Macho Mans, your Stings, your Lugers, Dallas Pages, your whole locker room is at the curtain watching Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton wrestle this match. And the fans are going crazy. And I'm just going nuts. I'm going over the rail, and I'm sitting in the front row drinking a beer and back over the rope, and my pants come down with one of those sunset flips. My pants are down. I'm selling. I'm doing all the Buff stuff, and it's just hilarious. And I get to the back, and Sting goes, "Oh!" And all the boys are high fiving me, and, "Oh my God, that was great!" And I go, "Thanks, man, thanks." And the Sting goes, "Oh man, I love the dance you've added." And I go, "What?" He goes, that dance you did. And I go, What did I do? And so he tries to tell me, and I got no idea what he's talking about. So I've got to get a video from Dallas Page. Dallas used to video all his matches. I got the video from Dallas and had to watch back what I did and repeat it. And that's how the dance started.
Wow.
So I watched it. I mean, just out of nowhere, I came up with that crazy big dance out of just my brain, and I watched it on video, and I recreated it and made it part of the dance. And I did it. I got to do an arm drag and come right up into my dance, and it was just funny. It was just hilarious, and I hit the double bicep afterwards, and it was just so funny. And everybody was like, "Man, you got to do this," and they called it the strut.
Yeah, the strut.
The Buff Bagwell strut. The Buff strut. So that came from that. The hat was from breaking my neck. I love ball caps, and back in my day, there wasn't like this ball cap here. This is fitted, but it's that flex fit where it kind of stretches for your heads, so it fits like several different size heads. Well, during my hat wearing days, there was this company called Lids. Lids, Lids. And Lids had hats that fit exactly to your head. Like if you had a haircut, it would make a difference on how the hat felt. Okay. So they were fitted for your exact hat. I had like 7 1/8, 7 6/7. I mean, it was crazy. The tag said those numbers. So it was literally had to try every single hat on to get a good fitted hat back then, but that made that fitted hat that much cooler. During one of those episodes of me buying 4 or 5 cool fitted hats, my wife says, "Hey, there's that top hat. Try that top hat on." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "Let's just take a look at it." So I grabbed the top hat and put it on, and it looked really good on me. I was like, "That looks good, but what am I going to do with it?" So I bought it because I had money. So I bought it and went home with it. Didn't think nothing about it. I break my neck. And when I broke my neck, I found out pretty quick that it wasn't good to be off TV. And how was I going to do this get on TV thing? So as soon as they released me to be back on television, I was calling Eric Bischoff like, "Look, man, I need to get back on TV. Well, I can be on TV. I can't wrestle yet." But so I was back on TV in about 3 months. So that's 12 episodes of Nitro that I was off of. That's a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So when I came back with those overalls, and the overalls was to hide my weight that I'd lost. So I wore the NWO shirt underneath it, and I wore those overalls. That way you couldn't really tell how much weight I lost. And I came up with a top hat. So I tried to get cool in other areas so, you know, so I could keep my character going. So really the Buff Bagwell character was really, really created during really after I broke my neck. That area of time after my broken neck, man, I really got creative with the hat and you know, my mom came up with this. She was like, you should paint your face on the top. So this face is the actual very first face that I did on my very first top hat. This is not an original top hat. This is a top hat. This is mine now, but it's not one of the originals. I've got one left. I got one left that's the original, but this one is not an original. But still, it's the exact painter, the guy that does my stuff. Still, he did this. But my mom said, "Why don't you put your face on the top?" And I thought, that's great, you know? So things like that gave me ideas, and I'd add to it and take away. But the top hat, the overalls and stuff like that, that came from scared of people going to forget me and having to come up with other creative things so I could stay in their minds.
Yeah. You say you had a guy that did all of yours for you, Buff, because you were
Still
very,
does.
I think you were very influential in that. You were thinking about your gear a lot more than other people at the time. And now more and more people do it. And I think you were probably a big influence in that, in terms of the, you know, getting your face and on your pants as well as your hats.
Well, just like this, for example, when I went in NWO, you were a group of guys that all have the same shirt on. I was the first one to put Buff on the back of my shirt.
Yeah.
I wanted people to know me. There's going to be a difference here. I'm here. Here I am right here. I'm Buff. So it wasn't trying to, you know, isolate me. It was just more letting them see all the different personalities. But I was the first one to show, hey, let's make me Buff here, you know. And then I did the do-rags, you know, the do-rag stuff and the backwards hat stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so I always wanted to add to something to make it a little bit cooler. I had the choker NWO thing, you know, that was cool, and just little things I would do just to try to make it cool and different. But my outfit was a big part of my career.
It was. It was indeed. So you mentioned your tag title run. We've gone past the NWO. Big changes in WCW then. Vince Russo comes in from the WWF, well, you want to go to WF still at that point. Then you become New Blood. The New Blood starts. And was it the Billionaires Club or the Millionaires Club versus the New Bloods or something, wasn't it? There's around those.
Yeah.
Millionaires Club.
Millionaires Club. You can tell Dave's more WCW than me. The Millionaires Club and the New Blood. What at this point is it kind of, because obviously WWE's now they're pushing on. They're doing crazier stuff and more
right.
Crazy stuff. Is it now? Is it now sort of at the back? Is it now thinking, okay, we've lost this, we've got to try it? Was there an appetite to try and pull it back, or was it kind of, oh, we're in trouble?
To be honest, what happened exactly was that, you know, we knew we were in trouble for sure. We knew we were in trouble, so we were like, how can we fix this? And we knew that, you know, the only way to fix it was ratings. And so when Russo came in, again, that we thought that was going to be a good thing. And we all loved Eric, but we just didn't know what to do. Our ratings were hurting. So Russo came in, he sat with each and every top guy. I'd say when I say top guy, I was one of them, but meaning I'd say probably 30 names he sat down with one-on-one, 30 of our top guys, and me being probably the very least of the top guys out of that list. But I was one of the guys he sat down with. And what he promised us, each and every one, was that our problem was that our boss always gets wrapped up in the TV and becomes one of the TV stars. And it's not their job to be a TV star. It's their job to be to control the talent and make the talent stars, not the other way around. So he beat that into all of our heads. And so what he did was he on TV, he was the voice, and Ron and Don Harris, the Harris brothers, they were the ball-headed team that went and did all of the bad guys' plans. With that said, I don't know how long that lasted, but not very long before he had an NWO shirt on and had a baseball bat and was beating everybody up. So, before you knew it, he was in 8 of the 12 segments, Yeah. And again, WCW was doing exactly what it always does. And the promoter, the actual booker, was the one getting himself over on TV. And it didn't work again. So then they brought Eric back with Russo and try to make them both work. And that didn't work either. And it just kind of fizzled out. But it was such a great show that it all could have been fixed. Even at the end, bro, the NBA Finals was doing a 1 on a rating, a 1. We were doing a 3.5, bro, and we got fired. I mean, it just don't happen. I mean, we're doing that. Yeah, we weren't doing 6s anymore. But we were still doing a 3.5. Yeah. That's crazy. That's huge numbers. So it's just crazy that they didn't see a way. I mean, I just knew when we wasn't doing good that there was in no time going to be a Fox, another channel that was going to buy WCW, and there was going to be 2 or 3 of these, kind of like there is now with AEW and stuff. Yeah. I just knew there was going to be a Tony Khan 25 years ago do this, but I was wrong. There wasn't.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, Buff, because I think there's a real misconception about the end of WCW, because you were still getting big crowds, big live crowds. You were doing great with merch. The international sales were good. We saw you guys a few times in Birmingham over here. You did UK tours. Yeah. So I think people kind of, they remember things not as they actually were, because WCW, and I might not be in the majority, but I enjoyed the product even up until the last Nitro, and there were a lot of fans that still did. So I was hugely disappointed when it went the way that it did. I suppose when we were talking earlier about the DX invasion and all the fun you could have had then with the WWF against WCW guys, as fans, that's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see that WWF versus WCW, right? Not what we got. Was that the feeling for yourself as well?
Well, we were forced to believe that. Like, I remember the day that Vince showed up with Shane. When Shane showed up, it was really a really brutal day, man. Oh, it was just so horrible. I mean, I pulled up with about $10 million worth of talent. It was Nash and Luger and Sting, and Goldberg was there. All the guys that come in is, pretty late. I was with all those guys, and we're all coming up, not in trouble late, but just kind of late. And we're coming up to the building, and I happen to notice it. I go, what is a semi doing here? And all the boys looked, and nobody said a word. Everybody just started walking in different directions to their people. And as my walk by myself to go to my people was, I saw our staff and what's her little name? Eric Bischoff's girl. Anyway, one of the main secretaries, she was crying, trying to get Ric Flair's picture, and just seeing the girls and Deborah McMichael and just some of this Donna Seaman, and just some other people in the office I know, and Craig Leathers, and just seeing the looks on their faces. And what I could see is that everybody was trying to get pictures with the original people. Like, I saw Ric Flair with the belt and people trying to get pictures with him, and it just was just real sad. It was just really a sad situation. But right when you started getting your head wrapped around what was going on, a person goes, hey, there's a meeting with Shane McMahon in here in 2 minutes. So all the boys went in this crazy kind of small little room, and everybody's like standing shoulder to shoulder in this little room. And so Shane McMahon walks in, and about a 30-second long interview, he says, hey, I'm Shane McMahon. We own the WCW. We're going to keep some wrestlers. We're going to fire some wrestlers. We're going to keep some referees. We're going to fire some referees. We're going to keep some office people. We're going to fire some office people. Good luck. And that was it. And that was it. I looked at Luger on what to do for a response, and Luger didn't clap, so I didn't clap. But about half the people did the golf clap thing, but half the other people didn't clap at all. And it was just a weird kind of setting. And so I thought for sure, okay, well, it's over. It's done. We're done. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're saying that, but you're Buff Bagwell. I mean, is it really over for you if you're Buff Bagwell? Well, maybe not, but it sure don't look good. So I go to my car. I'm leaving to go home. I'm depressed, and I'm going home to Atlanta. So when I get to my car, Lex Luger doesn't run for anything. And Lex Luger was in a full sprint toward my car. And I was like, oh, my God. So I get out of my car and meet him at the front of the car. I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He goes, we're on the show. We're on the show. And I go, doing what? He goes, we're doing an interview. I can't believe the words I'm getting ready to say, but it's the truth. I have never seen if I'm even on the show. I've never been told I was on the show. I've never seen it with my own eyes. I can tell you I did an interview that was which was a pre-tape that was supposed to go on the show. But that show that was taken over in Panama City Beach, I do not know if I was on it or not.
Wow.
So I got in my car after the interview. I got the okay that I could leave. I got in my car and drove home. And on the way home, my father called me. And he goes, hey, man, what's going on? I go, I'm coming home. He goes, where are you at? I said, I'm on the road. He goes, so you're not watching the TV? I go, no. He goes, they just made an announcement, and Vince McMahon mentioned your name. And I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, Vince is in Cleveland, and Shane's in Panama City. He goes, but they got into an argument about like who their stars are going to be. And there were 5 guys that Vince said, and I was one of the 5. And out of those 5, my opinion is I got the second biggest pop. So all the boys and me consider that to be a really great thing. I mean, Vince McMahon said my name. That's got to be a positive thing. Yeah. So I was excited. So I'm main event one week, and I'm fired the next.
Yeah, he certainly was for whatever reason. That's,
yeah.
That absolutely, from my point of view, waste opportunity for them, not you. Waste opportunity,
but it would have been, but it would have been a great thing, man. The WCW versus the WWF. It really could have been. I think a lot of great things come from it, but it wasn't, and it is what it is. But I think it could have been a fantastic run.
I think it could have.
All the guys they picked up, there was the top 3 were yourself, DDP, and Booker T.
Right.
So, yeah, you've got to be thinking, you were still young, very young then, weren't you? Around 30, something like that. So you
31.
Yeah. And it's just so disappointing how it played out. And do you wish things could have been different? I know there's no point thinking too much about things like that. It's been and gone. But you had a massive fan base and you were one of WCW's biggest stars. So, in your opinion, why didn't we see Buff as a future WCW champion or a WWE champion?
Man, I mean, it's really hard to look back on, man. It really is, because if I wasn't in the state of mind I'm at right now with being in such a good place in my life, it'll always be extremely depressing. I mean, forget the material things I lost, like my house that I built from the ground up and all the things I built getting ready for this huge run that anybody in Buff Bagwell's seat would have done.
Yeah.
I didn't pre-do anything. I did everything like it was supposed to be. I've been in this business for 10 years, Now you're Buff Bagwell, and you just signed a new contract with the WWF, and here you go. You're getting ready to go, brother. And out of that comes a week or two of a job, and they fire you from main event to ending. It's just a really, it's not even a blame or a finger to point. It's just more of like, are you kidding me? Really? I mean, you're talking about fitting a square peg into a round hole. Firing Buff Bagwell in Atlanta, Georgia wouldn't make sense to the most stupid, most hated fan in the world that hated me more than anything. That wouldn't make sense to even that person. It just doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. And and you just got to go on with it. But it is definitely very depressing that they did that. I hate it. I love what the WWE does. I think they're great. They are definitely the best network out there. I just would have gave anything to have gave them this last 20 years of my life. It would have been incredible.
Yeah, I think so. I certainly think they definitely dropped the ball. Let's focus on a happy ending, Buff, because you're looking amazing. You are looking in great shape. Listen, everything that's gone on, you are looking brilliant. Tell the guys at home, what are you doing now? You've got a podcast. I know you started a podcast. We've started a podcast as well. That's what you're on today. But you're looking great, man. It's really good. It's really good. And we're happy to see you in that happy frame. You're looking really well.
Really healthy.
I really appreciate it, man. What happened to me is I got in 2020, I had a really bad car accident.
Yes.
Under the influence of drugs. And I was drinking. I wasn't drunk, but I was drinking and taking prescription pills like I do. But I ran through a building in the back of Cumberland Mall. And longer the short of it is, it was one of the best things that could happen to me. Because after that is when I decided enough is enough, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So from that is when Dallas and my niece, Dallas Page and my niece and a guy named Steve Yu, which is the president of DDPY, they stepped into my life and said, look, you got to get clean. My knee was not healing. And I, for the first time, was really maybe like clinically depressed. And so I like people do, I dove into drinking because of the depression and taking prescription pills and just kind of checked out. Well, then Dallas and my niece and Steve Yu stepped in and said, look, you got to clean up, man, or we're out of your life. If you don't clean up, we're out. So I went into treatment and I went to a place called Black Bear, August 27th, 2022. So 2.5 years later, 2 years exactly after my car wreck, I got back. I go to rehab, and then from that till now, my sobriety date is August 27th. 10 months. On the 27th of this month, I'll be 10 months clean. So I'm 10 months clean. I feel great. I appreciate it, man. I feel good. I look real good. My calendar's full. I'm all over on. Just my calendar just is so good. This weekend I'm in the Astronauticon. Just all kind of Comic-Cons I'm doing every week, and just good things are happening. Podcasts all over. Just my name's getting back out there again, and just good things are happening all over. I'm really doing a lot of stuff with sobriety. I'm starting to do talks and stuff, explaining how I did it. It's the big question with recovery is how did you do it? Because people want to know because they fail at it so often. And how I did it this time was I followed the rules, and the rules are 90 meetings in 90 days. Mm-hmm. And getting into rehab, not just 30 days and you're clean, but that 120-day thing, that 120-day sobriety. And then by the time you get that under your belt, you got something you're working for. And all of a sudden, before you know it, it's like me, it's been 10 months. So feel great, looking great, everything's going great. And how people get in touch with me is go to MarcusBuffBagwell.com. Yeah. MarcusBuffBagwell.com. That takes you to all my platforms. That takes you to my social media stuff, takes you to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So you go to MarcusBuffBagwell.com and you can get all those handles, so all my social media stuff. And that's how you can get in touch with me. And my email address is MarcusBuffBagwell gmail.com. So again, that's how you get in touch with me. And I'm doing good. And like you said, I'm buff. I'm still the stuff.
He
The
certainly
girls
is.
just can't get enough.
Exactly that. What a way to end the podcast with the classic line. Buff, it has been an incredible show for us. We can't tell you how thankful and honoured we are just to have your company for a little bit of time to chat some wrestling with two marks from England. We are super appreciated for you. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. You guys got my contact. You know how to get in touch with me, and just you guys just let me know if I can do anything in the future for you. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Buff.
That is from Buff Bagwell. That is Dynamite Man Dave DMD. I'm Adam Cousins. This has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Buckle down, stay safe, and he's Buff the Stuff. Good night.